This time on Rad Rat Video, we are reviewing Skate 1. Welcome back to Rad Rat Video, a channel about skateboarding in all its forms. I talk about skateboarding video games here a lot, like Skate 1. I recently replayed it as a challenge run. You can check it out right here. I played with the joystick switched around, all of the grab buttons switched around, and the push buttons switched around, which made it really, really hard. But it made me think that it was probably just like playing it for the first time. You know, everything felt weird, it felt wrong, I had to learn how it all worked. It was probably a little bit tougher than playing it for the very first time, but it made me wonder if this game was still worth playing today. If you have never played anything in the Skate series, is it worth picking up Skate 1? So I have both versions here. I had the 360 version back in the day until my 360 died, and I eventually ended up picking up the PS3 version. You can play the Xbox version backward compatible on the current systems, or you can play the PS3 version on an emulator, which is the way I did it. You'll have some glitches in the audio and you might fall through the world, but overall it works pretty well. So let's play the game, but do keep in mind, because my push buttons are switched, I'm going to Mongo like 60% of the time. I tried my absolute best to remember it, but a decade of having those mapped in my brain was hard to undo. But let's jump into the game. Let's start with the good stuff. What's your favorite thing about skateboarding? Is it coming up with the perfect trick to do at a certain spot? Is it finding an awesome ledge you weren't expecting? Is it filming, spending time finding the right angle? No matter what it is, it's in this game. To me, it's the feeling. That's why the main thing that stands out in the game is the physics, especially for the time it was released. When you do a grind, you can really feel it, and you slow down in a realistic way. The Tony Hawk games never did that. I can't think of a game that felt semi-realistic since Thrasher, and this is leaps and bounds beyond that. Having analog control was a big upgrade too. You input tricks by doing different patterns with the right stick, a completely unique idea. And the height you do the trick depends on how fast you flick it. It might be harsh on your controller, but it adds a ton of realism. It also has other small touches that help a lot, like getting wobbly in a fast nose manual. That makes sense in real life. Turning at speed also feels good. It can be hard to do a power slide on purpose, but in general, things happen for a reason. It feels like they actually consulted people who skate to make it all feel authentic. And my appreciation for the physics engine actually went up since my original review because of Session. Session shows me exactly how hard it is to get this stuff right. Turning at speed is completely uncontrollable, and you're always hitting imaginary rocks that throw you off in a random direction. This game isn't released yet, but still, the fact that Skate 1 got the engine so solid is genuinely impressive. And the vert is really good too. You can push in the flat bottom like a Philistine, but you can also pump and keep speed like a real transition skater. And it's tough to test this for sure, but it seems like whether you ollie or not doesn't make a difference in how much air you get. And that's good. Your air on vert is just based on your speed and pump. Ollieing pushes you away from the coping and lets you do flip tricks, but it shouldn't get you higher. Of course, it's completely possible to get stuck in a half pipe. It only happened once in my run, but it vexed me so. As does constantly switching stances. The game will reset you into the wrong stance very often, which is a pain if you have a certain line planned out. But another good thing is the pro skater cameos and the characters. A lot of people don't like your cameraman Retta constantly talking in your ear, but I actually like him. Sometimes he's got jokes.
Yo, it's gonna be the Bridge Club Revenge.
But he's at least telling you who the pro skaters are in case you don't actually recognize them. He adds some personality, which the game needs because your character is basically a blank slate. In fact, I don't think your character has an original thought in his head in the whole game. Reddit just parades you around, has you risk your life doing stupid things, and sells your footage, I guess? You end up making a pretty good amount of money too, but there's no reason to spend it. You can buy clothes and stuff, but they're also free from your sponsors, so I don't know why you'd bother. But it's not just Reddit. Having a world that feels like it's full of real people is nice too. They get in the way, they can be incredibly annoying when they seem to multiply during a challenge, but we're talking about the positives here. San Vanalona is a great city to skate in, pulling famous skate spots and putting them into one seamless level. There are a ton of spots hidden away, like this whole park. There isn't a single challenge in the story mode here. You just have to stumble on it, and you can skate here for hours. It's very well done with a lot of variety. Downhill areas, plazas, cobblestones, marble, places with security guards that will rob you, and for some reason rob KAOTICZ's apartment in a corporate office building. Another great thing is the skate reel. These days it's not as useful and you aren't really uploading stuff to it, but it was fantastic at the time. Being able to spend time working on a trick just for your own enjoyment and getting the perfect camera angles and then saving that clip, that's now a standard thing in skate sims. Just imagine if Skate 4 came out without a camera mode. It's unthinkable. So in a lot of ways, Skate 1 molded the future of skateboarding video games, and it helped put the final nail in the coffin of Tony Hawk's aging series. They even included that video recording in the gameplay itself, kind of, with the video challenges. On paper I like these, but I think they need a little work. They go like this. You have a list of things to do with one timer. Grind a certain distance, spin a certain number of degrees, that kind of stuff. But the cool thing is that you can do them wherever you want. It's up to you to find a spot and come up with your own line. It's pretty cool, and it's a peek at what street skateboarding is actually like. You keep an eye out for cool spots, you come up with the best thing you can do at that spot, and you work at it until you finally land it. Nothing feels better in skateboarding. The major issue is the combos of stuff that they put together. A lot of the time they slap a minimum airtime to that list, which usually means you just do a bunch of ollies at the end. Sure, you can do this in a more realistic way by skating vert or finding a line with some big drops in it, but who's got the time for that? And the long grind challenges are really hard too, unless you just do it down a curb, down a hill, then they're really easy. So why would you do it anywhere else? Pretty much all of my film challenges have curbs and flat ground grabs in them. It would be tough to redesign these challenges to make sure you don't do that, but it stood out to me at least. Maybe they should have tried limiting the challenges to certain areas like the school or the community center. A little less freedom, but it keeps you from falling into the same habits just because they're easy. The photo challenges are great though. They are easily the best part of the game. A photographer from Thrasher or the Skateboard Mag will text you on your sponsored slider phone and tell you to meet him somewhere. Then you have a specific trick type on a specific spot. Flip into a grind, get at least 400 points. Do 2 manuals and a flip trick. I really like these because it feels the most like real skating. You get a little creativity to come up with how you want to meet the requirements, but at the same time, you have to do something that makes sense in skating. Of course, the pictures they take are always god-awful. Who framed these? Was there nobody in the art department at Black Box who knows how to take a skateboard picture? You need to be able to see the run-up and the landing so you can actually figure out what's going on, and you can't require me to do a combo and then take one photo of it. These should be sequences. It's kind of minor, but given how big of a deal it is to get coverage in this game, why wouldn't they do that? So, good challenges, minor annoyance, I'll give it a pass. The on-the-spot high scores are quite a bit of fun too. They aren't marked on the map, and you just find them naturally throughout the game. I found about 15 of the 20 of them that are littered throughout the city, but I was just trying to play through the game pretty quickly and I was relying on the subway quite a bit. So what happens is you roll past a spot and Reddit will tell you about it, and you have to beat the best score ever done at that spot. It's a natural, realistic street skating thing to do. Another event type that's very similar is the pro challenges. These might be even better than the photos because at least you have different people to talk to, even if 2 of them are responsible for killing people now. But these are similar. Do a certain type of trick at a certain spot. One of my favorites was this pool one, where I had to do an air over the diving board. So I had to get a good line, pump just right, and blast over it, and that felt really good. Overall, I wish these challenge types were the only thing in the game because pretty much everything else sucks. Things get better later in this series, but at this point, it's in rough shape. After the tutorials, the first thing you do is play a game of skate. There are only a few of these required in the game, but I hate them. In my recent run, I got pretty lucky, but it's perfectly possible for your opponent to land a ton of tricks in a row, and for you to just eventually run out of things to do since you can't repeat tricks. And the directions don't matter. So frontside flips and backside flips count as the same thing. Even in a best case scenario, it's annoying. The flick it control system is cool and innovative, but it's very touchy. Scooping a 360 shove it versus a 360 flip is a tiny difference. Only by the end of my run did I start to be able to reliably do 360 flips on purpose. So these are an exercise in frustration. Another thing you do fairly often is follow people to spots. This game absolutely hates fast travel in any way, and it goes out of its way to make you travel long distances as if it's something you'll enjoy. The perfect example of this is the time I had to follow Gons so he could take me to an Adidas pop-up ad, and it took 8 full minutes. That's an obscene amount of time to follow someone, and along the way, he bailed 11 times. It's not always a disaster if he bails because it can give you some time to catch up, but it might also ruin your whole run. This time I was about 6 feet away from him when he bailed. The game thought it was 65? Wait, look at this. Does this look like I'm 65 feet away? Yeah, okay, sure. But when he resets, he's over 100 feet away at speed, and he gets right up to 200. I almost lost the challenge right there. Ultimately, these follow missions are annoying, but they're really not that bad, but they feel more like a chore than a fun video game objective. The contests are there in a way that I find completely baffling. In the Tony Hawk games, and in real life, you do your run, see how well you did on the leaderboard, normally. But I think Skate just wanted to show off their NPC skater engine or something because the contests are always jams. To have a lot more fun jamming a fork in a power outlet. Everyone skates at the same time, and you start at the same location. It's impossible not to run into the other skaters constantly. Who thought this was a good idea? How is this better than having a chance to do your own run? This pool contest is a worst example. You ollie into the pool basically blind, then get a ton of air. What are the chances you don't hit someone on the way down? Happens all the time. But to make sure these challenges are still beatable, they just make sure the other skaters suck, so you only have to land a couple decent tricks to beat their score. Another great example is Dill. Just look at this guy. We're competing with each other on the mega ramp, and no matter what I do, he appears out of nowhere and hits me. And this is the one place where the physics don't really work either. Your speed can vary by a lot, depending on exactly how you drop in. So Dill is just unavoidable no matter how you try to time it. He's coming for you. Why do the contest this way? Maybe they thought there were just enough high score challenges in the filming and the photos and they wanted to have you steer around other skaters just to mix it up a little bit. I don't know, but they really should have thought again. How about this? Make it more realistic. Tell the player what the judges are looking for, like wanting to see you cover as much of the course as possible. You'll be judged better if you hit a rail, do a couple different flip tricks, do some switch tricks, and maybe even throw in a grab. Don't just rely on the high score number, but make it a little more sophisticated. Maybe they didn't think something like that would be accessible for gamers who don't know much about skateboarding, but it would have been a lot better than this. The last, and also least, challenge type we'll talk about is the death races. These are pure torment. I really can't figure out why these are in the game. You'd think the first time they playtested this, they would have deleted the code and fired whoever it was that wrote it. But with my time in the corporate world, I'm pretty sure it went like this. Hey Tim, I need you to add in a new racing mode by end of day. But I would need to modify the traffic engine to make sure the player isn't overwhelmed by cars, maybe add in some racing features like drafting, maybe a more sophisticated cornering braking system so that it's actually satisfying. Can I get a little more time? Fuck you. So here's how it works. I don't know how it works. There are gates that you can go through. They're usually green, but sometimes they're not. I don't know what this signifies, if anything. Going through a gate resets your timer, so you don't have to hit all of them. I think just get enough of them. As for the actual nuts and bolts of the racing, I again have no idea. If you crouch while you skate downhill, maybe that makes you go faster, but maybe pushing as hard as you can is better. I don't know, but it seems like you can get passed by anybody at any time. In fact, I have no doubt that all of the other racers are faster than you. So how do you win? Traffic and luck. Getting to the bottom of the course without crashing into cars is completely random, sometimes impossible, and absolutely required. Take a look at this area. You blast down these stairs into absolute chaos. There are curbs on both sides that you can get caught on, either tripping over them or accidentally grinding. Cutting through traffic is often hopeless, and if you crash once per run, it's basically over. You absolutely need every other racer to crash once or twice so you can stay ahead. In the run that I played on the channel, I had to cut out about a half hour of attempts for this race, and it was still a really long video. At the end of the racing quest line, they get irrationally difficult. If you play this game again, just do the bare minimum of these. Save yourself. If you complete every mission in the game, you just get an extra deck. It's not worth it. Now let's talk about getting around the world outside of the races. It's aggressively bad. The first thing you'll notice if you're coming from Skate 3 your session is the fact that you can't get off your board. It seems like a small thing, but it's absolutely terrible. If you mess up when ollieing up a curb, you have to turn around, push, probably get hit by a car, restart, then get up to speed and try again. It would be so simple if you could just walk a couple feet. So many challenges are ruined by this, and one actually celebrates it. Here I'm trying to meet up with Pat Duffy. I get stuck on the architecture for a bit, which is a fun preview for what was about to happen to me. All he wants me to do is grind this ludicrously long handrail, but you have to figure out how to get to it. Are we 5 years old, pretending the floor is lava? If my feet touch the stairs, I die? Why would you do this, Pat Duffy? Did you used to skate all the way around the block after every attempt, back in your Plan B days? But the game does that to you, and it revels in it. Just look at this. They added in these ledges that are too high to ollie just to make it more annoying, and to make you skate further away to get up the building. Luckily, I got the grind first try, but I would have been apoplectic if I didn't. Even when the game isn't rubbing it in your face, it's still there. You're always skating really far out of the way to avoid walking upstairs. I can't tell you the amount of times I got to a marker on the map, only to have to brainstorm how to get those last 20 feet. And the only fast travel option you have is to travel through the subway. But look at this. The subway map barely matches the real map. I went to the wrong one more than a few times because of that. Why would you make the map so abstract? And there aren't nearly enough subway locations, but I don't want to imply that I want more. I want 0. I want to be able to pick a challenge icon or a landmark from the map and fast travel there. Why not? What possible use could there be in making you skate everywhere? I guess you're forced to find more spots in between, but forcing players to do anything is a terrible game design choice. Inconveniencing people for what you think is their own good is stupid. They did better in later games. But it's not just traveling to the next challenge. Sometimes they specifically require you to do a certain challenge at a certain time. If you unlock a big one, like the cover of Thrasher, it'll hide all the other challenges, so you have to do that one next, even if it's on the other end of the map. Even if you're really far away from the subway, and that challenge is really far away from its closest subway. I'd say, conservatively, the game is at least 10% travel time. Maybe this won't bother other people as much as me, but I'm really obsessed with efficiency in an unhealthy way. I'll plan out my errands to do a bare minimum of driving, and if I ever have to backtrack, I get really pissed off about it. Imagine how it felt for me doing all this back and forth, getting hit by cars, going to the wrong subway stop, and getting a bald patch or ripping out all of my hair. So with all of that said, right now, is it worth picking up Skate 1 for the first time if you've never played it before and you haven't formed your own opinion on it? It's really hard to say yes, but I do think there are a couple of good reasons to do so. First is that Skate 1, while this has a lot of problems, Skate 2 and Skate 3 especially are very good. I think Skate 3 is probably in the top 5 skateboarding games for most people. And if you're like me, if you played Skate 3, you'd probably want more and you'd try to go back and play the first two. I would recommend starting with 1 and then being surprised by how much better it gets, then surprised by how much better it gets again after that. So for that reason, I do think it's worth playing just to work your way up to Skate 3, which is a very, very solid, polished game. The other reason is more about history. You know, just seeing where the skateboarding genre came from and how this was the first real modern sim skateboarding game, and playing it just to appreciate where games go from now. So not necessarily playing to enjoy the death races, but playing it for the culture and for knowing what it was and to see how it influenced things. So I think it's worth playing for that reason. If you have played the games back when they first came out, I guess, I would probably just skip the first one for sure. But yeah, if you haven't played it before, those are the only reasons to play it. Or you could watch my entire run that I just did. Yes, my controls were flipped, so it was a little bit tougher, but I played through everything and I only cut out the most boring parts. So you can still experience the game that way too if you want to do that. But that's it for Skate 1. I did review this game a long time ago. I don't think I'm going to be re-reviewing games very often, but I felt like I had to after my most recent experience with it. So that's it for now. If you like the channel, you can subscribe to it. You can also sponsor me on Patreon to get to see some things early. You can hit the join button here on YouTube and get some perks that way. You can buy t-shirts on my website, radratvideo.com. There's also a blog version of this review there if you want to read that instead. And that's it. Thanks for hanging out.